Hey, Bradley, what's going on, man?
Hello.
I'd like to officially welcome you inside the Crazy Ant Farm. You'll be talking to myself, Logan, and my co-host, Dustin, today.
What's up?
Hey, Dustin.
Hey, man, how's it going?
I'm good. My wife is pregnant, and so she's 3 months in, which is really exciting.
Oh, wow.
And
Congratulations.
and we got a dog, and all we need is the house.
There you go.
Got the picture-perfect family, man.
Exactly,
That's awesome.
getting there.
Yeah.
But like I was telling Olivia, and I'm pretty sure you saw, you're kind
Sure.
of the epitome that we want to be. We also have a production company, but we also do this podcast. So we're going to learn a lot about what you do today, and it's going to help us on our journey and where we go with our production company and just so much more. But what we'd like to do at the beginning of each interview is kind of introduce you to our listeners, because we have a lot of listeners who are trying to also break into the entertainment industry. So we like to ask our guests, how'd you get started in the entertainment industry? We see that you have a background in journalism. Did you always just want to be a writer? Like, how'd you get started, man?
Yeah, well, the thing I always try to tell people who are coming up is there is no straight line
Yeah,
into this
right.
world at all. And when you start looking for it, you're like, I'm just going to do what he did. You're forget it. It ain't going to happen, right? So for me, it was I wanted to be, when I was my 5th grade yearbook shows me wanting to be an actor, right? And I think a lot of people in this industry feel that way when they're young. And you just realize it's creative expression that you're in love with, and you just don't know which way that's going to go. And as I was growing up, I was kind of getting practical and wanted to be a veterinarian for a while. So, and the reason why I wanted to be a veterinarian was because I would read these books, these stories by James Herriot, who is like a fantastic veterinarian writer that wrote these great novels. And I fell in love with the stories, but didn't know it was the stories I was falling in love with. So I thought I wanted to be a veterinarian, right? In the end, it came back to the stories that were hooking me. And as I went down the path of saying I wanted to be a filmmaker, I went to college on a traditional route. I was in college to be a vet, so I was in pre-vet. And like about sophomore year, I was just having this anxiety of this is not the route, this is not for me. I really need to be in storytelling, and so I started taking those electives, screenplay classes. They happened to have them. They were not ranked in any high end. My university was Penn State, but they didn't have a big ranking film school. I just taken like whatever there was, and then I started to write screenplays in college, and I was not a good writer, but I was doing it anyway, figuring. And it was during the time that Edward Burns was coming up, and you were making movies at Sundance, $25,000 to make a movie, and 35 millimeter, and that was like the big deal. And he did it black and white or whatever. So I was reading his books and getting excited and thinking that I could just write my own screenplay, raise the money, produce the movie, star in it, direct it. That was the mindset. So I modeled that, and I made this movie that I'm never going to let anyone see. That I raised $150,000 from doctors, lawyers, friends, family, the typical thing at that time. Giving it in $25,000 increments. Putting together subscription documents, learning all this on the fly. I didn't go to school for it. Never went to film school. Never went to business school. Just kind of trying to figure it out. I'm not smarter than anyone else. Definitely not than your listeners. And I was just a good pitcher. I had a lot of energy. So I'd be in the room, and I wrote the screenplay about a summer camp in danger of being sold. The kids try to save it. I'm like, I can house the crew. I can shoot the film. I can feed them all in one location on this summer camp that I had a connection to because I went to it for like 20 years.
Oh, nice.
And I looked for the time frame when the summer was over and found a slot for like 12 to 18 days and just started to put it together. Honestly, I was writing checks then. There was no like Venmo. It was you were like writing checks, and I thought 35 millimeter was the thing. There was no digital, so it was all about anamorphic lenses, which made no sense, but I did it anyway. And I don't know, I was kind of crazy. I feel like when you're young, when you have a lot of energy, you're in your 20s, and you think your ego's huge, and it actually helps propel you. I've been smacked down a few times now, so things have changed. But and you just have all this energy, and you have all this like almost know-how by like ego, and you just push and push and push, and people are excited about that. People get very addicted to that, or feel that they want to be in your presence. And when they do that, when you're in front of a lawyer who's like sitting in his job like miserable, and he's like, here's $25,000, what does that mean? But I get to be a part of this movie that this guy's so great, and I think he'll be the next whatever. that's sort of what happens. And the movie was terrible, but that's not the point.
Exactly.
I didn't know anything. I didn't learn anything. Sorry, about like knowing that it's about I wrote a film about 15-year-olds. Well, you don't know about 15-year-olds. 15-year-olds don't watch 15-year-olds. 8-year-olds don't watch 15-year-olds. 20-something-year-olds don't watch. Nobody wants to watch 15-year-olds.
Right.
Right.
But I don't think about marketing. I didn't know any of that stuff. So that's where I started, and I made this movie. Got into 6 film festivals, but they weren't big. They weren't Sundance. They were like you never heard of them.com festival, and then, I won an award for cinematography, but I wasn't the cinematographer. And it just sort of led in this way where this company came around and said, we'd like to distribute your film. And I'm like jumping up and down.
Right.
But today, if I thought about that company, I would be like, I can't believe I thought that was a company.
No.
But no way. But then it was amazing. So it ended up getting distribution on DVD and whatever they did, foreign sales, and we kind of did all right and made some money back, but not a lot. But it was just one of those things where it was a step. It was like this is for me. How do I keep doing it? And then I wrote another screenplay, and it was much better than the next one. But September 11th hit, kind of like today is hitting.
Right.
And you couldn't raise money for movies. You could not do anything. And I was out of the house and had rent to pay. And so I kind of had to start over and went to the bottom of television. And at that time, reality TV was blowing up. So I was like an associate producer on a couple of reality TV shows for channels that don't even exist anymore. And was just kind of languishing, working my way up that way, became a field producer, started working for some of those shows that Magical Elves used to make, like Tap Chef and, Project Runway, that kind of stuff.
Uh-huh.
And then I ended up on a reality show called America's Next Producer. You should never watch it.
Everybody's
but
searching
it's an example
now.
of like, this is going on and nothing is a straight line.
Right.
I'm on that show. I end up hating reality TV by being on the show, realizing how kind of manipulated it can be in the sense that they put you in unair-conditioned rooms, or they only give you an hour of sleep. They wanted you to fight. They wanted the drama. Right. So, and I'm not a drama guy. I'm a put fires out guy. As we know, I'm a producer, so that's kind of my job today.
Exactly.
But anyway, so I go through this process, and then I realize, oh man, I need to do something that makes sense, that gives me purpose in life. I'm going to go and do the exact opposite. I'm going to go into journalism. Right? Journalism. Right before where it is today. Okay. And so I say, I'm not going to go to journalism until I get into the best school in the country. Still, the ego is still there. Right? It's a healthy ego. And so long story short, I have this amazing story around how I get into Columbia University, but I get into Columbia University, and it's the #1 school in journalism, and I do really well, and I win this fellowship, the CNN Columbia Fellowship, and I start working for CNN. I do rotate all their shows for like 6 months, and then I end up on Anderson Cooper shows as an associate producer, working there for a bit, and then I have a real epiphany about how journalism is not for me, and the reason why is because it was going all the way left and all the way right. It was extremely opinionated, and it was just not where I saw myself going. And so, the dean of the school came by to check on me because I was doing the fellowship. He's like, what do you think? And I'm like, he's like, do you want to be that guy? Kind of points to one of the producers. And I'm like, you know what? I really don't.
Right.
So, what am I doing here? So I made a couple of calls to all my connections back in film from back in the day when I was like into it. So this is like a 10-year thing. So 10 years ago, I'm like, oh yeah, I was in film. Why did I want to do that? I wrote a screenplay. Oh, what happened? September 11th. Oh yeah. So I call all these people. I finally hit one guy. His name is Michael Helfant. And he's just leaving Marvel. He's president of Marvel. He's a friend of the family. And I said, I really want to continue to make movies. I want to go back to making movies. And he's like, well, you can't do that if you live in New York. You really do have to come out to LA. And I was always against that.
Right.
I was, at this point, I'm 33 when that happens. And so, to all those people out there who are like, I'm in my 30s and I didn't make it. No, that's not true, right? I still haven't really technically made it, and I'm 42. So it's a process. It's a journey. And so at 33, I make that call, and long story short, decide to move out and become like a creative executive for him in his new company. And then I start working my way up in that company, and now I'm at the place I need to be. I'm doing the things I always loved to do. So you start to thrive very quickly. So I become the head of production and development. I start producing the films with them, and then our first film out the gate for that new company was The Call with Halle Berry.
Mm-hmm.
Right,
It was a huge hit. And so that kind of launches us. And then from there, we were at this company, Troika Pictures. And then eventually me and Michael Helfand went off and started our own company called Amasia Entertainment, which I am at right now. And I've been here for 9 years. So you get the point that it's not a straight line at all.
No, it's kind of like bobbing and weaving. I compare it to boxing a little bit. You got to find which way you want to go.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I tell you what, the three things really stuck out that you mentioned throughout that whole thing, and I want to talk about them a little bit. One, ego. You say ego, but I really do feel like you have to have a little bit of cockiness or a little bit of confidence. Call it whatever you want, but you've got to kind of have that edge a little bit to make it in this industry because it's built on rejection. So if you're not cocky, if you're not confident, if you're not going into it with a little bit of an ego, it's hard to get through. Like you said, you get knocked down a lot, and I think it's hard to get through that if you don't have a little bit of an edge like that. And the other thing I want to bring up,
I agree.
You said
I was going to jump on that for a second if you want.
Sure.
Pleasant ego is key here, though.
There you go.
Like I was just in an Uber with a guy who's an actor, who has a lot of that energy, had a lot of that ego, didn't know who he was in the car with, right? Is going on about the industry and how it should work and what it is and how this works. And I was thinking to myself, this guy's actually wrong about everything he's saying right now. But he's rolling. He's rolling, and I'm not going to say anything. And it gets to the end of the car ride, and he goes, "So what do you do?" And I go, "Well, I'm a film and television producer." And he's like, "Oh," and I just want to say, most of what you've been saying really isn't true, and let me tell you what is. And so I started going into that a bit and giving him a bit more advice, and hopefully, so it's like it's how you use that energy and that ego. You absolutely need it. You absolutely need it. And in acting, you need it more than ever. You have to walk into a room, and they're just like ready to say no, and you just have to walk in there like you're more confident than they are, and they're like, "Why don't we have this guy? We have to have this guy."
Right.
You have to project that. So you're right about it, but you got to be pleasant in the way of doing that, and that's not easy.
And that leads me to the next thing when you said you're a good pitcher, because I think the art of the pitch is a long lost, skill that a lot of people need to refine. Because you mentioned the enthusiasm and the excitement, and when you make a pitch, if you can get somebody, like you said, the lawyer or something who's miserable at whatever they're doing, or may have no idea about the film industry or what it's all about, but if you can get them excited about it, they're going to jump on board, and that all comes from your enthusiasm. And I think a lot of people nowadays don't know how important the pitch really is.
It's critical. It's the number one thing possible, right? And I'll give you an example. I did a really cool pilot project about me as sort of like being it's called Project Pitch, and it was people coming in and pitching me, right? And then like my response to them, kind as I can, but like you get to see why they're failing or why it's working or what you need to do and what a good pitch feels like. And when you see that and you study that, you realize that you don't have a lot of time. You got to get your most exciting stuff up front. It's got to be sticky. It's got to be that when you leave the room, they can't stop thinking about it. They go to sleep. They wake up. They're like, "Oh my God, that's really good. How do we? Let me read that. Let me see what the next step is." You can't bombard them with like a bunch of stuff, and then everybody's going to get lost. We're all ADD as it is. We're on our phones every second. Like you got 1 to 3 lines that have to be like, "Wow, that's really intriguing. I kind of want to know what happens next. Send us the script."
Right.
And then it gets read by like 5 people before it gets to that person you just pitched, right? So something has to resonate so that guy's saying, "What happened to that project about X?" And then, that's kind of how it goes. But pitching it's energy, it's enthusiasm, it's pleasantness, it's I just want to be in the room with, like right now, you guys feel like you just want to keep talking to me all day, right?
Definitely.
That feeling is what I've got good at over time. And me just saying that is ego. Right?
Yeah.
But that's the kind of thing that I want to feel in a room with somebody, that I want to be in that. Remember, I want to spend 3 years on a movie or a television show with somebody. I gotta want to be around that person. So can I work with this person? I can find that out in a pitch. as they're pitching me, I get a sense of their personality, and I can tell you if I want to work with that person. I've seen Q&As I won't name names, but I've been to Q&As with directors after a fantastic film, and they do a Q&A at Sundance, and I'm like, I cannot work with that director. Just from the Q&A.
Right.
And I will never, and they're super talented. Everybody wants to work with them. Hasn't made a movie since, and I know why.
There you go.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah.
And you're talking about getting in the room. Do you have to necessarily be represented to get in the room, or how do you find your way there? Do you have to find the right contacts?
It's a really good question. There are the companies that are like, it has to be represented by, don't take unsolicited materials, blah, blah, blah. But I mean, when I was young, there was something called the Hollywood Creative Directory, and it listed every single company, their names, the people, their positions, their addresses, and their phone numbers. That was amazing.
Yeah.
And I used to call all like 200 of those before I would take a trip to LA. And and I had no representation. And I would just get on the call like they had to meet me. Like there was how do you not even know who I am? You know what I mean? It's like I'd get on that call and be like, this is Bradley Gallo from Real Life Productions. I'm coming into town. I'm going to be there, between this date and this date. I need to meet with Jimmy Bob, and I have this incredible project. It's a must, and here's what it's about. And I pitch it or whatever real quick. So what time are you guys available? Oh, Thursday. Great. Thursday at what time? Like I was that guy.
Yeah.
Right? And I would do that 200 times and get like 5 meetings. Right.
Sure.
But the 5 meetings were like, now I'm talking to, I literally got, this is just between you guys. Well, I can't say it's just between you. I'm on the
Right.
podcast. But I got into some of the biggest producers. Like it would blow your mind. And the assistants today are like running studios,
Oh my
Exactly.
goodness.
But it's like you don't know who you're going to meet. Or
Exactly.
just take the assistant out. Just take the assistant out. Make the meeting with the assistant. And because that assistant wants to bring a great project into their boss, right?
Absolutely.
So you can't forget about all those things. Getting into the rooms, it doesn't always have to be you're represented. How do I get represented?
Right.
Stop. That's just you making up a block. Like your friend of a friend of a friend knows somebody who can get you into a room, and you just get in there and you kind of hang out, go to a coffee, chat it up, learn what their needs are, bring their needs to them. I don't know how to explain it. It's just constant. The problem is you don't want to be in this business unless you can constantly, get up every day and keep doing this until you hit the right thing. That's the problem. A lot of people like get really annoyed and then they just get into this kind of tangent of like, well, I don't know him and he doesn't know him and I'm not represented. Great. That's the attitude.
That's exactly right. I love everything you just said about that entire run. And I think, again, it goes back to the confidence, because if you don't believe in yourself, no one else is going to believe in you. So when you pick up that phone, you've got to be that guy. You've got to be the guy say, no, you need to meet with me. You don't understand. How have you not met with me already? I absolutely love that philosophy, man.
You also have to know what you're good at and what you're not good at.
Exactly.
Remember, that's critical here. So, like, let me give you that example. I was making that movie. I was the writer, director, producer, and star of it, right? Well, it became very clear that I am not the best writer in the world, that I can act, but I'm not the best actor in the world. I'm not going to be like the top of the game. And, I can direct, but like, I understand it. That's not mean I'm visionary, like, freaking Christopher Nolan, Denny Vanilla, like that's not going to be me. So I don't want to be a journeyman. I want to be great at what it is that I can do.
Right.
What it turned out was producing everything that I was doing was producing. I was putting this project together out of nothing, from an idea to a script to a getting a crew together, getting the financing together, and putting the whole project together is what the producer does. I get to touch every single part of the process.
Yep.
Well, if you get to do that, that to me was the home run, right? That's what I liked. So then when I get on the phone, I'm confident because I know I can do that. But if I got on the phone and I was trying to pitch somebody about me as a director, I would be clearly not confident, and they would pick up on that energy, and I would get rejected off the bat. That I can pick up in seconds. Just people walking in the room, I know whether they're confident enough at what they're actually about to pitch me. Like I got good at that and understanding that. And you have to get good at being realistic with yourself of who you are and what you're good at. And that's what you're supposed to be pushing. Not, if you're both partners in a production company, and one guy's the finance guy, and because he's really good at it, and one guy's the creative guy, then you should divvy that. Don't be the creative guy that thinks he's the finance guy.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, know what you're good at.
Right.
And push that, and be honest with each other is another thing.
Definitely, definitely. And I mean,
Not easy, not easy. Everybody's feelings get hurt. Fuck the feelings. This is not a feelings
Exactly.
business.
exactly.
Exactly.
This is a business. This is a business. And even like with ourselves, we have three people all together in the company. And, sometimes like lines are kind of have to get intertwined and things like that. So you're saying basically try to stick to your lane as much as possible, but also learn a little bit about the other lanes because you also want to help a little bit in the other ways you
No, no,
can.
no, of course, of course. Michael, who's my business partner, is very, very smart. MBA lawyer, the whole nine yards. If it's a contract, he's in the lead.
Right,
If
definitely.
it's a financing plan, he's in the lead. But I'm sitting right next to him. I'm learning everything.
Hell
I'm
yeah.
going
Hell
through
yeah.
with him. I'm making my input. I'm giving him another viewpoint, of course. But am I in the lead? Am I taking those calls when we're doing those calls? Am I the guy who's like talking from 20 years of experience in it? No. But if we're on the call with the director to talk about the creative vision of the movie, that's a different story. Now I'm in the lead, and he's there, and he's giving his input, but he understands, that I'm going to be the guy who's sitting on set in production, talking with and being with and scouting and talking to the production designers and all that. So that's my lane. That's where I excel, and I try to make that better and better and better. And I want to get better at the things I'm not as good at, but you just have to be very cool about, adjusting your ego to not feeling bad if you're not involved in something.
Right. I mean, that's the whole point of teamwork. That you're supposed you do what you do, let the other people do what they do, and you accommodate that. That what you fill in the blanks, and I think that's what makes teams
Exactly.
work. I love that, man. I just think your entire philosophy about how you approach things is spot on, man. It's no wonder now talking to you why you've been so successful and have had the success that you've had. And you know what I like is that you're still grounded. I mean, you literally said at the top of the thing, and I haven't made it yet. And I'm like, even with all the success you've had,
Right.
you're like, no, I still haven't made it yet. And
Not a
I love
chance.
that,
But I
because
think I might take that. I might take that to the grave. That's one of those weird things where you're always trying to better yourself, improve yourself,
Definitely.
absolutely,
and
absolutely. Because when
people
you
think they step on that Oscar stage, they won an Oscar, and then they're like, "Oh, I've made it." Nope, I would still not feel that way.
exactly, because when you reach that plateau, when you think you've made it, that's it. You're done.
Yeah, that's
So
when it's
yeah, I mean,
over.
yeah, you don't want to do that. You don't want to ever be done.
Yeah. Well, you know what I love about it? I don't feel that I'm that good, and what I like about that is that I can keep striving to be better.
Yes.
I don't know what it's like to be a Spielberg who, clearly was one of the best and top of the game at the time that he was.
Right.
And so now maybe his movies are, to him, it's still learning. He's still thinking like maybe he doesn't think he's that great, right? So that's why you stay and that's why you keep making movies. It needs to be that bug. Where you don't think you're that great, honestly.
Yeah, dude.
But you can't get caught up in the scenario where everybody else is telling you are great. That's another problem, and that usually happens more in the actor world, and sometimes the directors and the writers too. But like when everybody's saying you're amazing, you're amazing, you're amazing, then sometimes your ego goes the wrong way too.
Yep.
So and then you think you're just so great, it doesn't matter what you touch. And that could hurt you in your creative process, your direction, and your ability to improve, in my opinion. I think that happens when people surround themselves the way they do with, a team that's sort of yesing them.
Definitely, definitely. You do not need yes men around you because you always need to take that creative criticism and just keep moving forward. Try to make the best possible product that you can put out to the people that can start a conversation.
Yeah, agreed.
And I mean, coming from a guy who produces basically everything, film, television, what is more fulfilling for you? I mean, the 9 months or 8 months on a film set or the season-long episodics?
I would say to you that I am completely miserable right now because I'm not on a set.
There you go.
And that I am the guy who really enjoys the community of filmmaking.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm a little bit happy if we're in a room and we're talking about development, we're all together and we're going through it. But if I'm not in the community of us putting together a film, I'm usually not happy. And everybody knows that about me here. And I would love to just be like 2 months in, New Orleans making Mr. Right, and then jumping right into 2 months in North Carolina making Careful What You Wish For, and
Right.
then, going on to 9 months of a television production. Like, I want to be in production all the time, and I would like to die in production.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
that's my passion. And it's because I like bringing all these people together who are incredible artists that are way better than me at what they do and putting them together to make the best vision of that particular project. I'm going to probably move more towards social impact because I want it to have an effect more than just make money. But, a lot of these movies, you have to make money to keep the lights on. And then, from there, if you're making a production about something that matters, like those are usually lower budget and they usually require a lot of painstaking passion. And if you're doing that, you're not going to make a lot of money. So I might not care about. I never really did care about making money, which otherwise is another issue that people have when they want to be famous and make a lot of money. That's dangerous in this business because it doesn't really happen.
Right.
It really doesn't. Yes, there are like the 10% that make a fortune, but most of us don't. We're making a nice salary, or we're making enough movies to have some producer fees that sort of get us by. But I don't even own a house, and you would think that I'm super successful. It's just not the way it is. So you have to love it. You really do.
Absolutely. You said the key word, passion. You have to have a passion for it, man. I want to talk to you too, as a producer, a little bit about the whole impact of streamers and the kind of transition now between just theatrical and films made for the streamers. And as a producer, what's that been like for you in your career, and what are your thoughts on it? Because like you said, sometimes you want to make impactful films that might not necessarily make money, and maybe that right outlet for that is a streamer, or or not. So what are your thoughts on the whole? Because, I'm sure the whole Scorsese thing and Marvel movies and all this kind of stuff. Should it be in a theater? Should it not be in a theater? Blah, blah, blah. Give us your thoughts.
Well, I love the streamers to death because, it's single-handedly kept this industry alive. That's number one. Number two, I'm frustrated because I haven't made a movie with a streamer yet, which I'm dying to do, but so is everybody, right? It's like the gold rush. Everybody wants to be making movies with the streamers. You never really know what they want. They're using, obviously some of them are using algorithms. Some of them have different leadership that have different philosophies on how they're going to do it. So Apple might want to do one thing and Amazon wants to do another, Netflix wants to do another.
Right.
And by the time you turn around and get them the projects they were asking for, they've changed their philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's even being done on purpose. I have no idea. But I just want to be making the content. So anybody who wants to see it, how goes, I'm good. But I know what you're asking. And I always keep saying when people ask me that question that the future of the business is going to be that the theatrical movies are going to be event theatrical, the way you think of a Broadway show.
Mm-hmm.
You go to a Broadway show, it's a major event, it's Hamilton, and you pay $250 for that ticket. I'm not saying you're going to pay that for a movie, but if it's a huge event and it's, Marvel-y or it's something dramatic, massive war, Spielberg film, I'm making that up, you're going to pay, $40-$50
right.
To go to it. And that's how they're going to be able to sustain it if they do that. Otherwise, they have to do variable pricing, where you say my little independent film is only $6 and the big Marvel movie is $40. And
right.
they've resisted that for 100 million years, but that's another model that could work. Because they've done the surveys on it, and it's something that would work, but I don't know, there's politics involved, right? But on the streamer side, the problem with the streamers is that you make a movie, it's really good, and nobody sees it because it's not on the front page.
Mm-hmm.
They have to search for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or they have to hear about it. So when Mr. Right, which I made with Sam Rockwell and Anna Kendrick, finally hit Netflix did like this huge promotion. It was like on the front page, so everybody knew about it. It was number 6 on the week or the day or whatever it is, and that's because they were putting it right up front when you sign in.
Right.
So it becomes like this battle for how does anyone find it,
Mm-hmm.
Unless it's going to be one of their top 3 shows that year, or they're Apple's doing one big movie event a month, so it's like that's going to be promoted. That makes sense to me. That's awesome, right? So I mean, I don't know if I'm answering your question. I'm just giving you insight as it moves so quickly and things are constantly.
Right.
The streamers are a good thing because there's such a massive need for content.
Mm-hmm.
But I always worry about like what happens if the stocks drop so dramatically, and because that's how the streamers are buoyed by all this money, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they can't take as much content, or they don't need as much content, or millennials just decide, I'm done with these subscriptions and I'm going to read books. I'm making that up. There's always a chance that there's a reason to cancel, right? There's, everybody's worried that Disney's going to come along. You get Disney plus Hulu plus ESPN, and you're like, man, that they're going to keep raising that price. So if it's $12.99 now, when it's $24.99, do I then have to drop Netflix? And Netflix has to keep making amazing content so that people don't drop them. The whole fear for streamers is people dropping them.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Like I am currently a customer of Apple because I did the 7-day trial, and then it's still hitting me at $9.99 a month. I liked the morning show, and I liked Servant. But if the next two shows come on that I don't like, do I stay with it? Do I keep it? Can I handle all these $9.99s? And now it's like $300 a month. People are going to start. Middle class Americans are going to have to figure this out.
Yep.
So it's a big gold rush right now. Nobody knows where it's going to go, but anytime there's a need for content, we as producers are happy.
Absolutely.
Definitely. And something that is also just right along the trail of that gold rush is social media. What do you think about that? I mean, I feel like we've had some guests on the show.
Remember, I'm 42. Did you guys hear the part where I said I was 42?
Heard that. Heard it. We've actually had some guests come on the show and say when they go into an audition, they get asked about their social media numbers. Do you think you would ever do that in a casting call or a casting audition? Or, is it that important to you?
It's a great question. And I would have to say that social media is important, but it is not the end-all, be-all. I'm not casting someone because they have 5 million followers,
right.
But I like that they have 5 million followers.
That.
But I know that it doesn't work. I can't have a movie where the actor is got 20 million followers and he promotes the movie on that day or that night or throughout the week. It doesn't really move the needle that much.
Mm-hmm.
And so we all know that now, but it doesn't hurt. So it's sort of a middle ground.
Gotcha.
There was a time where they were trying to make movies with all influencers, and they were just putting all these influencers, and it didn't work.
Yeah.
Right. There's times where an actor might only want to do they know their importance of their 20 million followers, so they're like, I'm just going to agree in my contract to do one before the premiere, the day of the premiere, and the day after. You know what I mean? They can control it. So if they're not pounding it for weeks on end, it's not going to be the equivalent of me putting weeks on end of posters and massive billboards and commercials. That's still going to kill. What really works now is really small, interesting viral ideas. If there's a viral marketing campaign, Legendary did something that was really interesting when they were doing Pokemon Pikachu, I think it was called. They had this thing where Ryan Reynolds Twitter was hacked or something, and they got a copy of the movie, and so everybody thought the movie was leaked illegally online, and so then they went to that video, they clicked on it, and it was like the first scene of the movie, and then it was just the Pokemon for 2.5 hours dancing.
Oh, damn.
Right? And so, but it was massive. It worked. It was a great idea. Those types of things will be very helpful in the social media land. It's here to stay. It's not going anywhere. There'll be different versions of it. TikTok this and TikTok that, right? But I don't make a decision on casting because of it. It's just a nice added bonus. But the same added bonus this day and age could be a diverse actor. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Because that's where a lot of the industry is focused, and I get it. But there's all kinds of qualities of thoughts and then acting talent, and then fitting the role and what the director thinks. All these things go into one big does it work? And what they're worth is another huge thing. Sometimes is this going to work for foreign? Is this foreign sales? Am I going to get value out of having these 3 actors in the movie? It matters for the budget of the movie.
Definitely. And how important is IMDb for you guys?
We definitely use it. I mean, I'm an IMDb Pro subscriber, right?
Yeah.
So if anybody asks me a question, I'm like, on IMDb, check out who the agent is, who this person is. Do I care? You mean the IMDb meter?
Right. Again, the star meter. Yeah.
Yeah, but if somebody dies and they're number 1 on the meter.
That's true.
So
that's true.
What does that mean?
Yeah.
So no, I mean, we look at it, but we don't really judge on it. It is nice when you're when Rebecca Ferguson got cast in Bond, and you were like, she's number 1. Who the heck is Rebecca Ferguson? Right. I think it's more helpful to the actor of who the heck is than it is about they're number 1 on IMDb. Let me cast them in this movie. I really don't think that matters. Although I do get really annoyed when mine goes from like 40,000 to 90,000.
Right.
Right. Same here.
Well, and it's kind of replaced like the book you were talking about earlier, where you could just go through and get 200 numbers for everybody to call. If you have
Perfect
IMDb
example.
Pro, it's like that's where you go now. You can get publicists,
That is
agents,
it.
right? So good to have, right? Good tool to have.
Oh, it's a great tool. I'm for the tool. I just don't. If it was about the media queue of like the movie meters
Right.
and stuff, that doesn't matter.
Gotcha.
Nobody cares.
What would you say is the most difficult aspect of producing in today's landscape?
Financing. Everybody will tell you it's financing. Like if you're doing it from an independent scenario and you got to raise your money, that's the hardest part of the process. The second hardest part of the process is getting cast to actually commit and attach to your project. But like if you have the financing and and it's a really great script, I'm just assuming that if you're a good producer, you have a really great script, right? I'm assuming if you're a really good producer, you're going to get a good director. So like the two things that a really great producer versus another really great producer, the problem would be is like who can get the financing and who can get the cast. And if you have significant relationships, is where age is better than youth sometimes, is because they have significant relationships with cast, and they can make a phone call to The Rock and be like, what do you think of this? We should do this together. That's a different game, right, than having to go to the agents and waiting for them and their 12 other offers for The Rock. Which is Dwayne Johnson, by the way.
Yeah.
That guy.
For anybody over 40, right? Like it's okay.
Yeah. But I guess I age myself in my conversations. But the point I'm making is like casting is really, really important, and financing. Those are the two that I struggle with the most. If I had to go from my perspective, how do I get a cast member? So they read the script, they love it, they want to do it, right? And they're in the next this, and when's the time frame, and how do I lock them down? And then I wait 8 months for that cast member, and then she goes and does another film, and because Spielberg called, right? These are the complicated parts of producing. Like whatever goes wrong in the actual making of the movie, I just know my skill set. I'll get around it. I'll fix it. I'll figure it out. The things that I can't guarantee are financing and casting.
Good. So how important then is networking? Talk about networking for a little bit, because I just like you just said, it's so much easier if you can just pick up the phone and call Dwayne, say, hey, come on, man, get in the, as opposed to having to go through the route. So how important do you think networking is for people?
It's super important, but everybody knows that. What I think the skill is the networking after making the movie. And what I mean by that is the relationships you make on the films. With significant talent like production designers, costume designers, etc., and the cast. If you're jiving with someone, I mean, look, you're not going to jive with every cast member, and they're not going to jive with you.
Right.
And so, but every movie, there's like one or two cast members that I get really friendly with and close with because we're in the trenches together and we really like each other, and it's a wonderful experience. Like a perfect example is Louis Pullman, Bill Pullman's son. Love him to death. He wants my wife is having a baby, and he's like, oh, I want to be uncle. That's because we bonded, right? Doesn't mean I bond with everybody. I really liked me and Rizza got really close on Mr. Right. Like that's that. There's a costume designer that I think is fantastic. I want in every film. There's a DP that I love to death. There's directors that I'm going on vacation with one of my directors. Like that is because it's organically we're really good friends.
Right.
But it's not going to happen to every single person. But if you treat people right, you do things right, they want to work with you again. I got another movie with the writer of The Call. I got another movie. Like that's what you have to do. It's more important after than it. Obviously it's very important all the time.
Right.
But I would say like networking is the skill that it took a long time for me to understand. And my biggest regret was not moving to LA sooner, because I moved at 33, and anybody who was here from 20 to 33 had already came up as assistants and friends, and they're all working in companies, and they know everybody, or they were born and raised here and then in the business, and they went to high school with them. Like there's a lot of that interconnectedness that I did not build until I've done now for the past 10 years, and I'm still behind the 8 ball. So networking is critical. when you think of it that way.
Definitely.
I do like the whole maintaining the relationship
Yeah.
afterwards, though. Yeah, great advice. Great advice.
Seriously, and I mean,
Yes.
you're talking about how LA is basically the entertainment mecca of the world, which it is. But what do you think about like Atlanta and Vancouver? Are they starting to make some
I make
headway?
no, they're great. They're great. You know, the Hollywood of the South used to be Louisiana for New Orleans, and
Right.
now it's really obviously Georgia. I would say that I make that ploy to directors and writers. Not directors, sorry, actors and writers all the time. I'm going to give you another great example. The security guard in this movie, Careful What You Wish For, was he was fantastic. He was a local North Carolinian actor, and we needed to do that because we were looking for actors that were local to help us with the tax credit.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times, you know, we have to employ as much talent, whether it's behind the camera or the actors themselves, as local actors because it matters for the tax credit. Well, he's really good. He plays the security guard, and then a television show comes to town in North Carolina called The Ozarks. You know it, very good
Oh, yeah.
show on Netflix.
Jason
Yes.
Bateman. Yep.
I love the show to death, and now he's the real estate agent on every single episode that they use his character
That's awesome.
for that show. And so I do tell actors, like, you can be one of 90,000 actors in New York or 180,000 actors in LA that are really good, or you can go to Georgia and be like one of 100. You know what I mean?
Right.
Right.
So it's like if you're a local in Georgia and Atlanta, and I'm making the numbers up, but like you're much more available and sort of known by all the casting directors in the local casting of Georgia. And so when a movie comes to town or a television show comes to town, they're going to want to bring in the people who are actually good.
Definitely.
And so they're going to always bring you in, and you don't have to deal with 90,000 good people.
Yep.
So like I definitely suggest that. And if there's a big, writing local tax credit thing, then by being in Georgia, then they go to the writers that are in Georgia. You know what I mean? Like, that's huge in terms of other places. Vancouver is also massive, and of course Canada has huge tax credits. So if you're a Canadian director or writer, you definitely want to stay in Canada and work in either Vancouver, Toronto, Montreal. Ottawa is a big place now. That's very good and a great way to distinguish yourself outside of the LA thing. I'm talking from a producer standpoint.
Right.
From a producer standpoint, you need to be in LA because all the decisions to make those shows in Vancouver are made here, right? So as a producer, I got to be pitching all around town all the time, and I have to be in front of people to do that. It's a much different as a creative.
Oh, absolutely. It's, again, solid advice for anybody trying to get in. Because we had a guest a couple of weeks ago, an actor who's been around for quite a time, and he said almost the exact same thing. You are more than capable of being a star where you are, was the way he termed it. But I can totally see the difference in the producer standpoint of that, because as we talked about earlier in the show, you got to get in the room, and unfortunately the room is in LA. That's where all the decisions are made. So
They are made. Nobody's going to spend $100 million on a TV show and make that decision from Timbuktu, Oklahoma. It's definitely made here to go to Oklahoma because the state provides a tremendous amount of great services and at the same time has a great tax credit or whatever it is. I'm again making that up.
No, tax credits are extremely important nowadays. Let's be honest about it. A lot of decisions are made because of that, right?
I made 2 movies in LA. 2. I made The Call because we got the tax credit, and The Road Within was Zoe Kravitz because it was such a low budget that we knew we would get the stars to be in the film because they were going home to their own bed, and so that we made both of those work in LA. Everything else, Ohio, New Orleans, North Carolina, wherever the tax credit is.
Absolutely.
Canada, Florida, you get the idea.
Well, first of all, The Road Within, I'm so glad you brought it up. My daughter introduced me to that film, and I fucking loved it. It's really what got me hooked on Zoe Kravitz, honestly. I had not really seen her before.
She was great in that film.
And the whole film was just phenomenal. She's like, you got to watch this. So, well done, sir.
Thank you. I mean, you should go see. I mean, that's a very heartwarming movie. That was I read that's actually a German film that we remade for America. The German film's amazing. The writer is an amazing writer, Gren Wells, and she did a great job adapting it. And I was so proud of making a movie like that. That's a perfect example of a movie that means something to people, that has heart, that can connect on so many levels with people who have OCD, people who have anorexia, people who have Tourette's. And so I think we did our job right, and we, of course, it didn't make a lot of money. And what I didn't, again, a learning experience. He uses the C word like 80 times in that movie.
Oh yeah.
And that immediately eliminates all of the television deals.
Right.
And we didn't think that way. You can't change it. It was just a really hard financial movie for us because we were limited in where we can show that movie.
Yeah.
But it's fantastically done for a budget so low. We just recently did a new movie it's now on Showtime. It's called Them That Follow. And that has 7 awesome cast members, including Olivia Colman, who eventually won the Oscar after our movie.
Right, the queen, the current queen.
Yes, it's her first American movie, her first SAG movie, and we're really proud of that movie. And had first-time filmmakers. Britt Poulton and Dan Savage. They wrote the screenplay together, gave them their first shot, made the movie for $1.3 million. Got Jim Gaffigan and Caitlin Dever, who couldn't be any bigger right now.
Oh, what? She's phenomenal,
She's in it, and Lewis Pullman, who I was telling you about before, and Thomas Mann, and Alice Englert is the star, and she's Jane Campion's daughter, but she's also a fantastic actress who crushed it on a lot of television shows like Top of the Lake and now Nurse Ratched that's coming out. I just love her to death, and she star is born watching Them That Follow with her.
Wow. Well, congratulations.
Seriously. I don't want to forget Walton Goggins was amazing too, and he's the preacher. He's talk about having a moment. This man is one of the best actors that should win an Oscar already.
Oh, agreed.
Amazing.
I'm excited to talk about the Green Hornet. Congratulations on getting the rights to that.
Yeah, thank you so much. Really, really impressive moment for us, and super needed right now because this is a franchise property that's outside of the studio system.
Agreed.
Marvel, DC, and all these guys, have everything, and so when you can get one. It's very special. So we have a very awesome relationship with the family, and they have been so kind and so understanding about how we're going to do right by them and the property. And I think that's why we were able to get it, and so it's awesome. So anyway, lots going on.
Yeah, man, and that's where we were leading. So what you have coming up, what you got going on. So talk about it a little bit, though. What we like to do is, and you've done this throughout the whole interview, but just to kind of narrow it down a little bit, because what pitfalls would you say for people trying to get into the industry, especially on the producing side, would you say to avoid or look out for? And then what on the flip side of that, what advice would you give for people other than just coming to LA? What would be the key piece of advice that you would give along with the pitfalls?
As a producer, or just in general?
Well, I tell you, as a producer, because I think you've talked really heavily about the producing aspect, and I think it's been a really interesting conversation, and I think people definitely want to know about that.
Yeah, the pitfalls. It's a very hard question to answer, so I only can just sort of tell you what I sort of run up against a lot.
Sure.
I think the biggest pitfall you can have is not recognizing when the town doesn't want your film, or the town doesn't want your show, or it's not the right timing. Like, if you love it that much, put it on the shelf till the next season and start working on something that the town needs or wants, because you can get a lot of these projects, like I've had projects for 10 years that are on my board, that are just never sometimes just hard to give up. It's something we really believe in and we know it would work, but the town doesn't want it right now. So it's like, keep it on the board. You never know what's going to come through, but get working on stuff that's going to work. Get making the stuff. Don't get caught up in like, this is the one that's going to make it and I know it, I'm just going to fight till the death on this one project. Make multiple projects. The other pitfall people have is they make one, it works, it becomes great, and they don't have anything after that. They don't have another screenplay to go. They don't have another 5 different possibilities that they can get going and ride the wave of that momentum. When we made The Call, we immediately made Careful What You Wish For and The Road Within. Like, ride the momentum, because it's going to come maybe once, and you're going to be like, oh, I don't know. I really wanted to do this one next or that one next. Like, what? Just go. Go. It's okay if you have 3 or 4 that don't work. Like, just keep making them. Nobody's got a perfect, flawless career. That's just not possible. But sitting there paralyzed is the biggest pitfall. I think. And then on the positive end, what's the good? What's the advice? I mean, I would say the advice is, I think the industry needs so much content that you're not going to be out of a job. But the advice is, find a niche and crush that niche first, and then do the other things that you might have wanted to do. What I mean by that is, like, look what happened to Blumhouse, right? It's like, find that niche. Are you going to be the home run horror director or writer or producer? Are you the home run Sundance type of producer? What is your niche that you can that everybody can kind of put you in? I know that people always say avoid it. I say don't, because if you get really successful at it, like Blumhouse did, then he gets to make Whiplash,
right,
which has nothing to do with horror film, right? Because he has power in the industry to do that. But if you do like a bunch of things, like kind of that's what we've done. We've done a bunch of different things. I don't think that was very helpful. I think that stalled us a bit sometimes. I would have liked to have just, ran with it and became, let's say, the thriller company, because we made the call, and just make thriller, and then everybody comes to us for thrillers, right? And then expand out. We were just doing what we loved each and every time. And if you're trying to break in, I say crush a niche. And I only say that now more than ever is because that's kind of how the streamers are going, right?
Absolutely.
They have these buckets. They have all these buckets. So wouldn't you want to be the guy that they do 10 of those buckets with? And they're just like, we're going to do a 10-picture deal with you, and you just keep giving us, every single romantic comedy like Adam Sandler. I'm making that up, but like, he's got his niche, right? It's working. And he gets to work on any platform. And when Sony was done with his deal, now he has a deal with Netflix. Like, what's the one you can crush, and then later you can do, like in his case, Uncut Gems, right?
Mm-hmm. Such a great film, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely.
My favorite film of the year. Was so happy to be at Indie Spirit Awards to see him win, and to actually see the movie, the Safdie brothers, win theirs. And their speeches were incredible. If you haven't seen Adam Sandler's speech and the Safdie brothers' speech, you need to see that after this call.
Definitely. I'm going to look it up. Seriously. But anyway, man, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to just come on the show and get a little crazy with us, talk about your whole career, because honestly, we've learned so much just from this conversation, and we're going to take it with us wherever we go for our production company. So we really appreciate you, man.
Yeah, and if you have any questions after this, or if there's, Q&As, you want me to do a Q&A little blog for your podcast webpage, I'll do it. I love the Q&As the most. Like, my favorite thing in the world is to be up in front of a crowd and then just raising their hand and asking questions. I just love answering off the cuff. So I'm always available if there's something that comes up and makes sense for you guys.
Dude, definitely. We will definitely reach back out for that. We were just talking about implementing some Q&As with the guests, so that'll be fantastic,
there you go.
Man.
Exactly.
Thank you so much.
And
talk to you guys soon.
Yeah,
be well.
Definitely. You as well. Don't get that corona, man.
No. I actually kind of wanted to get it so that I can get the antibodies without having to take the vaccine.
Hey, man.
Be the cure.
Exactly. And congratulations again, man, on the upcoming baby and just everything going on for you, man.
Thank you. Talk to you guys soon.
All right.
Thank you. You as well. Bye.
Bye-bye.